We had them in 2013. We had them in 1997, in 2007. And the question that you Kenyans, you must be asking, like I'm asking, what is the difference now? I even want to go further and say, even for those who it is said they might have decided, looking at the four of us, who can you say has made a difference in your life this far? If so, why are we where we are? Why do we still have money that should have been used in developing our country, stashed in nations abroad, illegally obtained and legally stashed? These are public resources. I'm not talking about personal private money. Why are we here at a time like this? And the Auditor General 4 years back tells us 215 billion Kenya shillings from Eurobond cannot be accounted for. It cannot be traced. It is a mystery. Why are we here before? And the Auditor General Nancy tells us this year that 70 billion Kenya shillings alone has not been used. Why are we here in a year like this when we have that much foreign loan? The Auditor General tells us about 540 billion Kenya shillings is in an accounted expenditure. And yet, this was a government that was supposed to change things. We had hope, but it didn't turn so. I believe the only thing that will move us forward is complete change from the top to the bottom. And what is permanent is only change, as they say. Recycling them will not take us anywhere. That's why this is a very defining election.
But you haven't told us why not those candidates. What, for example, would you want to say about these candidates?
Well, come again.
What would you want to say about these candidates, the other candidates who you're running against for president?
All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I would like to say they have been there before. One of them has been a deputy president and is still a deputy president of this republic. He is in government. The things he is saying he can do are things he could have done these last 10 years, this last 20, this last 30, because he's in government that long, and he has not done so. The other one has been a former prime minister. He's been in a coalition, a co-president, if you wish, sharing the government 50-50. The things he is promising are things he could have done, but he has not done. He's been in this race for the last 40 years. And the other one has been in government also. He's been with the police force, he's been in the intelligentsia, and even right now, I believe he is still in there. And the thing I'm saying is, if you take even this last 10 years, let me just take these last 10 years, where we have a deputy president who wants to run for presidency. This year, my team and I have counted these last 10 years, not less than 22 scandals that have taken place in broad daylight. And those are the ones that have been reported. There are others, we are told, are secret agreements about contracts to make roads that we don't know what they say. If you go to the former coalition government, where we had one of my competitors has been a co-president, a prime minister. We have counted about 12 scandals, and they have been there. They were even there in the Moi regime. And the final one, you've worked in government, you've traveled across the world, you must know something about our funds which are stashed abroad there. You are in the intelligentsia, you have served, you never retire from that. They don't fit the bill. They are not helping Kenyans.
Okay.
They are not taking what the issues are.
All right, let's turn to our next topic for discussion tonight, and that is the state of the economy. Now, you are on record, Mr. Waihiga, saying that within the first 100 days of assuming office, you will bring down the cost of living for Kenyans. How exactly do you intend to do that, and by how much?
You know, this is a serious matter, and I have not just said. In Kenya, we're facing problems at two levels. There's what you refer to similarity. There's what I consider as a short term, and there is a long term. Up until we called for the reduction, for a reintroduction of the foods, of the UNGA subsidy, UNGA was retailing going on to about 250. It was after we had announced in our manifesto that we would bring that. Thankfully, it's been brought down. But that's not all. And I'm glad that we are leading and others are following. We still know that the price of cooking oil is very high. I think now it's about 400. Bread has not come down, retailing 90, 100. Fuel is still at high prices. And those are immediate things. We don't need to wait to restructure our loan, or we don't want to wait, because those are some of the solutions I have had, to plant a kind of plant, probably, and wait for it to be harvested. We don't have to wait, you know, because Kenyans are hungry. They need immediate results. And what I have done, and you'll find that in my manifesto, we sat down with my team of experts and thought, what is the immediate? And our proposals have come in threesome. There was UNGA, which has been done. Thank you very much. We thank His Excellency, the President. But in the same measure, we say also other things could have come down. But we have said we shall introduce subsidies into other food products. That's number one. Number two, we have also said that we are going to reduce pay by 50% so that Kenyans can have money they can take home with. And that is something that will benefit about 16, 17 million Kenya shillings. If you are earning about 25,000, you'll be able to take an extra 1,000. If you are earning about 35, 40, that's another 4,000. We have also come and said to spur growth, throw some money into the economy. We shall waive away tax penalties that are accrued after the day we are sworn.
All right,
and you know, we are looking for ways to put some money in the pocket of Kenyans, something to spur, something to enable them put food on the table. Because as a country, I'm talking to you while we are broke. We are broke as a country. The most we can do is continue borrowing. I'm looking for solutions from within.
All right,
what
let
can
me
we do
interject.
now?
And you have said that you would reduce pay by 50%, but pay accounts for 25% of Kenya's tax revenue. How then would you meet revenue targets?
You know, that is not, it's not a problem. And I was going to say that's not the only problem there is in Kenya. If I take away 50%, the amount of pay we get is 460 billion. 460 billion. So 50% will be 230. When I take that money and I put into the pockets of working Kenyans, I tell you as I stand here, it will perform wonders. Kenyans are looking for any extra shilling that they can get. But how do I bridge that gap? We have tried to work around and see what can we do. And those are short-term measures because Kenyans have to survive. Otherwise, they will die, you know. We pay the taxes, the foreign loan we pay is at 1.3 billion. And we have sat down and said, if we can persuade our friends, and Kenya has many friends, I'm glad they are represented even here by the foreign embassies and diplomats who are here, and tell them, why don't you just accept a repayment of 1 trillion instead of 1.3? That will bring about 300 billion. We can bring back to bridge in the gap, and we are positive that it will be able to do that. But also the 260 billion that we put into Kenyans' pockets. Kenyans are industrious. Kenyans have goodwill from within. Kenyans are hardworking. And this is a nation that can get money, has had money, and will get money under a new government. The 260 billion, we see it bringing returns because it will go in people starting small businesses. People will be able to start their kiosks or do something else or start what we call side hustles. What Kenyans need is just a little money and they can be able to move forward. The other thing we have thought about is spread the tax base. That's something we are looking into immediately now in office. But I need to talk to you about corruption and the money that's stashed abroad.
We're coming to that.
Yeah, we go to that. But before we talk about that, you running for president, and you understand also as an advocate of the High Court,
right,
that for you to change some of these regulations, you will need Parliament. You give a time frame of about 100 days. Is it possible that you can get these legislations through Parliament in the period you're giving us? Or they're interim and just campaign rhetorics that you're using?
To bring food subsidies to zero rate all foods and all that, I will not need Parliament.
No, for example, changing the pay as you earn, cutting it by 50%.
I'll let for that. I'll tell you what.
Yes.
The parliamentarians who are coming in, the MCAs, understand the problems I'm talking about. They too are tired. I see goodwill will come forth. I am talking about something that every Kenyan would want to see happen. 59 years after independence, we can't continue being a nation of begging, famine bowls being held up like we have seen this year. We should be self-sufficient in terms of food, water. I mean, people should not go without medicine. That's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, you know what, Ken? There is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. Because I've looked at the manifestos of my other friends, my other competitors, I'm even the one coming with something close to realism, something close to practical. And I believe we'll find ways where I have to use executive orders, which exist, which are there in our constitution. I will apply them. We are in an emergency. We are in a time of war. This time calls for leadership.
In your view, what is the biggest challenge to our economy? Is it we don't manufacture enough, we don't trade enough, or is it regulations?
It's neither of those. Those could be the others. It's because we steal, we cut away, we siphon money that is supposed to go into our manufacturing, money that's supposed to go into our agriculture. That's what we have specialized in the last 10 years. Money that is supposed to go into our skill building, money that is supposed to go into the health of our fellow Kenyans. And a healthy person is a productive person. That's what we do. This is a nation where Kenyans work hard, Kenyans labor, Kenyans have got quite a measure of work ethics, but they don't get reward for their labor. For instance, to date, we don't have explanations as what we did with the Euroboat loans. When you listen to me, and you listen to others who have spoken out there, they say even for the SGR, the amount we are repaying is not the money we use for that. I am here, and I am borne evidence by a former minister, and allow me to mention the Honorable Joseph Nyaga, God rest his soul in eternal peace. That was in 2020 when he said it's time for us to bring our money back to develop our country. He was an angry person. He had served in the government for about 40 years. He was tired. Our money that is supposed to develop this country, move us forward, is hanging out there in nations that are willing to bring it back if only there's goodwill from my end. I am bringing goodwill. I'm saying, Kenyans, we must change. Those brothers and sisters who went ahead of us did not have two brains, Ken. They did not two heads. They don't even have a landmass. They don't have what we have, but they are great brothers and sisters. We can do it. It's time now, Kenyans, to go to where we went wrong and find out why and do it clean, have a clean start.
Two things. One, what you're saying has nothing to do with growing the economy. What you're saying is the generalities. What I want to know, the role of manufacturing in growing the economy, the role of trade, and the role of regulations. And while you answer that, perhaps tell us how much money in your mind are you thinking can be brought back to the country?
How much money
is outside needs to be brought back to the country?
Yes, I'll start with that and I'll come to what you're talking about, manufacturing, regulations and all that, because that's an important area. In the budget of 2017-2018, Henry Rotich, as he then was, the cabinet secretary, said to us that 14.6, which was rounded up to 15 trillion, was touched abroad and needed to be brought back. To date, that money has never been brought back. We've never had a report. Later, in the year 2020, the late Honorable Joseph Nyaga called again, and his was a cry, please, let's bring our money back, we develop this country. If that was about 15 trillion, and since then 5 years have gone by, we use 2 billion per day, that's about 730 billion, give it 1 trillion round up, that's about another 5 billion, 5 billion. When in my consideration, we have not less than 20 trillion outside the country that can be brought back. And if it is brought back, this country will be turned upside down and turned into a country that we can't tell that it is the same country.
On that
and
point,
that's just one area.
On that point, Mr. Waihiga, during the deputy presidential debate, your deputy presidential running mate, Ruth, said that you have already written to the United Nations and 15 other countries to start getting this money back into Kenya, and the hope is that if you assume office, the money will be back in Kenya. Have you had any response from these countries?
No, I have not heard, and I appreciate that we are in the period of elections, but I'm glad to know that things we've done, for us our 100 days already started, if you wish, by that effort, and also calling for the Unga subsidy, which was effected. But they are listening. We've got goodwill from out there. We've got great friends from out of Kenya. And I know they too have been saying they wish Kenya can have a president who is speaking the things I'm speaking. I've not heard from them, but I know they are looking at goodwill. You know, I can mention a couple of other things. During the Jubilee period, we have signed instruments with the Swiss government. The Prime Minister was sometime back here in Kenya with Theresa May, when she was the Prime Minister, about repatriating our funds which are out there.
All right, but you are also on record having said that if these countries do not work with you and your government, you will cut off diplomatic ties. How practical is that?
Wow, why isn't it? Why can't it be done? If a country is holding our money, it knows that it is supposed to be Eurobond money, or it is money from SGR, and it's aware. What else are we talking about? International cooperation, international friendship? How can you refer to a person, and here I mean a nation, as your friend? But what I know is that a lot of countries have been willing to send back our money. It's only that there have been no goodwill with the current leadership, the immediate past, and the leadership that wishes to be recycled.
But if they do not, will you cut off diplomatic ties?
Everything is on the table. Kenya needs to move forward. There has to be hard measures. But I can tell you, it won't need to get there. There's goodwill out there. There has been a cry. It's the other nations that they have even got a lot of dossier than I have of what has been done in this nation. And this has nothing to do with somebody who has worked hard and earned. It's Kenyan money, some of it which has been given to us from out there, and yet we have not used it carefully. But you also referred me to,
yes.
Is it about manufacturing regulations?
We will get back to that, but this is important. Are you telling our traditional partners and allies that everything is on the table, including cutting ties?
Oh, yes. That's what David Mora Wahiga is saying.
Do you not think that would have a massive negative impact on our country, our economy, our development?
Imagine you are a nation called Simiriti, and you are holding 10 trillion that is supposed to be Kenyan money. You know it. What then can we talk about? Rights, human rights? What more human rights? We are not in a state of war as a nation. Surpasses you are saying, look here, Kenya. There are these individuals, 1, 2, 3, 4, who are holding your money. We have traced it using the various instruments, using the various secret agents and other, and we know it is part of this. I mean, like for instance, and it must be common knowledge, there are nations right now that have come with laws. If you take money out there, and you are not able to tell who it is appropriated that nation, by that nation, and used for development. Kenyan wealth is being used to develop other nations. It is immoral. It is wrong. You are not a friend of Kenya if you are using Kenyan money to develop your nation. Kenyans are suffering now. They need their money back. Bring our money back is our campaign.
Whichever country it is, including the US, the United Kingdom, you're telling them tonight, you'll go for them.
Oh yes, yes. Everybody. You are holding our money. The nations you have mentioned have brought democracy to us. They have done a lot of good things to us. But you know what? I am telling you, 99% of them have wanted to. What we have missed in this nation is a leadership, is goodwill. It's a leadership says, let's do it. This country will not be the same 5 years down the line. This nation will be a nation where you will want to invest in. This nation has that potential. It's our time. It's our season. That's what I'm saying. I am actually passing a message to them.
Take us back to the economy now. Manufacturing, regulations, and trade. Take us back there.
Yes. You asked me, could those also be problems? we have to change also in a number of things in the way we do business. Granted, one could argue and say 65, maybe 70 of our regulations are good, but we can improve on them. Corruption has been a big problem. Bureaucracy has been the other problem. Very high taxation, particularly the corporate tax, has been a problem in Kenya. We've got to think twice. Yes, of course, I mentioned the key one has been corruption. I was there and I was grown up. I was working in the year 2002 when we got in the Kibaki regime. And I am aware, and I got it from people who knew, how nations come to Kenya. Because within the first 4 months, there was such active effort to get corruption out of our streets and what we were doing. And they wanted to invest. I actually came to learn they were being told, no, we've had enough. We don't need you. We can't do that. But I've also heard of instances, and I'm speaking to somebody who is listening here in Kenya or out there. They have to come to Kenya, applied for tenders, won tenders on all fours, won tenders on all fours, and then when they went to get their tender acceptance letter, they were told, before you get this tender, you have one more step to step. You need to pass. You need to go and see Mr. XY said. Apparently, the information I have is that some of the people who needed to be seen, if the four of us were here, are my competitors. Though you have passed all the steps for the tender, it cannot be approved until a final step, which is not in the official, list, is approved. These are facts that are known, and people have said, how can we do this? You told us that it's above board. People know of offices in this country where people went to pay 10%, 20% after they had passed all the tenders. And some of those men and women are going to line up here in coming days, maybe after this or in other platforms, and say we'll fight corruption. Our problem has been corruption, almost in our veins. But I know Kenyans are not corrupt. Kenyans don't like corruption. We showed it in the year 2000. So we need to improve on that. We have had problems with power, infrastructure, both energy and infrastructure on the ground. Those are the issues that we need to discuss and we need to look into. We have had Kenyans who've gone out there or gained a lot of knowledge. They have wanted to come to Kenya and they have wanted to set up industries, manufacturing entities, to get things going. But bureaucracy, corruption, red tape has been our undoing.
Is this the reason why you are advocating for making public all the contracts, starting with SGR, the Expressway, the Lamu Port, Naivasha Dry Port, Kisumu Port? Is this the reason, part of the reason why?
Part of the reason, but the other reason, Ken, is that there is no way we can fight future corruption unless we do with the current and the past. We must have a discussion amongst Kenyans. And I know what you are referring to. You are referring to the fact that we have said we'll also establish a Truth and Recovery Commission. We must have a conversation and ask, why have we been this corrupt? Why have we allowed this much corruption? It's got to start there. For South Africa, it had to start there. Truth. The Truth Commission that was set up, it was a starting point and it was key. We must discuss and talk about that. But that's not all that we'll be doing in that. Actually, that will be part of it. We must still ask how much money went into the SGR. We need to know how much, who are the KEMSA billionaires, and why have their names not been read out, and the money that they took away brought back into the country. This, the Honorable Deputy President of this Republic knows who they are. This, the former Prime Minister know what they are. This, Professor Wajakoya know who they are, being a person in the intelligentsia. And yet, they are not ready or willing to tell it. How can they fight corruption? How can they lead? How can you also lead when you are not ready to come on a podium like this and tell Kenyans what you want to do for them?
As we end the topic on economy, you mentioned earlier 15 trillion shillings that is stashed outside. You mentioned earlier 15 trillion shillings
Yes,
that
I
is
did.
stashed outside.
Yes.
However, this could be the whole amount of money from Kenya that is outside, because the Brookings institution says that about $12.5 billion. That's the only money that perhaps is illicit trade or illicit flow from Kenya to the other countries that is stashed outside. Why would you be going for even the investments that have been made by Kenyans outside and not specifically this illicit financial money that has been flowing to other countries? Why would you go for everything?
No, we go for everything, Ken. For me, that was read by the minister of the 14.6, 15 trillion. It was the minister for finance. It was the Treasury Cabinet Secretary who said that. He had the facts, he had the intelligence, he must have spoken with State House and they knew about it. His speech, some executive summary had been sent round, so it was known. He had contacted foreign governments and known there is probably as much as that. So I find no reason why. I've seen other records that talk about 6 trillion, but you know, we've never had evidence that has been brought back. But let's even come back to Kenya. You and I have not even discussed the 2 billion. The 2 billion, which adds to 730 billion per year. I'll round it up to call it 1 trillion. That's what we lose per year. So if that is what we have lost per year, these last 5 years, that is 5 trillion. During the last 5 years, if everything worked that way, that was another 5 trillion, if my maths work right. What we are saying, even with the 2 billion, we could have paid the 8.2 trillion Kenya shillings. We could have done that from the 2 billion without going for anything out there, and yet we still need to go out there. I mean, this matter of corruption, siphoning public money, and what we've been doing has been our undoing. No country can develop with corruption. And with the level of corruption that we have had in this nation, no wonder we are still begging and our people are going hungry. I've just given the 2 billion. And for us within Agano Party and with our experts, the 2 billion for us, we say is not even, can't even be a correct figure.
The 2 billion, Mr. Maura, the 2 billion from the Institute of Economic Affairs is not necessarily lost. It's been diverted to other uses. So if education was allocated 600 billion, perhaps they took a portion of it to another use, not necessarily lost. So when you do that sum totality, could you just be misleading us? Because this money was allocated to something and probably just diverted to another use and not the intended purpose. That's why we lack classrooms, for example.
Ken, the president of our nation, did not lie. He said 2 billion is lost. 2 billion. 2
Do you
billion
believe
does
the president now?
2 billion does not get into the economy. And later he was heard to say in matters corruption, I mean, he had tried his best. The word he used was his hands were tied.
But the Institute of Economic Affairs says this money is not necessarily lost. It goes to other purposes.
I mean, but why can't we see the effect? Why do we have such high cost of living? Why have Kenyans been going hungry? What are these other things? What has the Institute said? For me, I would say it's gone into people's pockets. For me, I would say part of that money would be on its way to some countries. I mean, the whole area of our financial fidelity, our being the shepherd I referred to, our doing what our brothers did. You see, from the word go, Singapore took such a firm and a stern position, the President Lee Kuan Yew, concerning matters corruption. And I submit to us that that nation would not have been where it is if he had done so. No nation can develop with corruption. Rwanda has come up just lately, and look at what our brother is doing over there. I mean, phenomenal similarity. I need to emphasize that.
Okay.
Just recently, it's not even 1963. Give Rwanda another 5 years. Botswana, they also fought corruption.
Right,
you cannot move forward with corruption.
Let's just come back to here. And you spoke about Kenya needing to be self-sufficient. We need to be a food-secure nation. There is a very close link between food security and climate change. We are seeing droughts. Millions of people are starving in our country, yet your manifesto speaks very little to climate change. What mitigation and adaptation measures is your government going to put in place to cushion Kenyans against climate shocks?
Climate change, the whole issue of the changing patterns of the weather is of concern to me and my team. Right now we are experiencing weather we have not had before. We have stopped talking of today was very hot or today was very cold, the way we defined it. We are now even going into what were the centigrades per day. You've noticed in our manifesto we've talked not just about measures we'll do, but even the fact that we would introduce taxation. We've noticed that. The first one is a poll tax for people who interfere with things that go into ensuring that we are not influencing the climatic changes that we are seeing, we have in Kenya, we are seeing in other nations. But it is very important in Kenya we have a discussion round about this matter before we become industrialized, because we are going to be industrialized. We have seen what the gases from the industries have done to other nations. And we don't have to wait to get there for us to deal with that situation.
So how are you going to deal with it?
The things I have in mind is, it
A
is
reminder
time.
to our audience, please, as per the debate rules, no cheering, jeering or noise. Do continue.
Yes, sorry, come again. What was that?
My question is
how? Let me give
how
you...
are you going to ensure Kenyans remain food secure vis-a-vis climate change? What measures does
We
your
must bring
government have to
education,
put
that's
in
number
place?
one. We must tell Kenyans that our rivers are important, our forests are important, our mountains are important. We must come back and enforce. We have laws that have to do with things that affect climate. But right now, you know, we have cut down about half the trees in Kenya. We must find ways of preserving our water. Kenya is very watered, but all the water goes to the ocean. We must come back even to a city like Nairobi and ask, why did we allow this building to be built next to a river? We must go to sources of water. Sources of water have been grabbed, and next to them, as much as developers can get, built houses. We must get to a point where we say, if something was done irregularly, it needs to be pulled down.
Mr. Wahiga, does the Agano Party have a plan to make Kenyans more resilient in the wake of climate change and ensuring food security and therefore bringing down the cost of living? Do you have a plan?
We do have a plan.
What is that plan?
Because agriculture is very important to us. And if you'd have noticed, we've said that the office of the president will keep a very close eye to agriculture. Because without food security, we are going nowhere. We can't be begging. Those many years after we became independent and we started ruling ourselves. We have talked about the preservation of our rivers. We've talked about injecting money. We've talked about bringing subsidies that enable farmers to produce fertilizer. We've talked about that. We've talked about exploring markets. We've talked about getting Kenya to where it was in terms of agriculture. You know what? We are not short of studies. We are not short of, as a nation, of projects that have come into being. Galara would have been, it's a case study. It's a case study. The nation of Israel, and I can't purport to be their spokesperson, were disappointed, and very many nations have been disappointed. That was something. But look at what we did with it. It's amongst the scandals that we have in the Jubilee government. This is what I'm saying, we are not going to allow anymore. So we must, it is one of the two areas that my office as the president, if Kenyans are pleased to vote me, that one, agriculture, and the whole area of asset recovery, I've said it's something every day I'll keep an eye on. I would want a report on it. I would want to know what is happening. So we do have that. We recognize people are still going hungry. We want to recover our riparian lands. We want to bring education from the lowest grade on all these matters. We want to bring sensitization, and Kenyans are all very open-minded. They are tired. They want a change. They want to move forward.
Okay, and just before we move on to the next topic, let me just circle back to my first question under this topic of the economy. I asked how you intend to bring down the cost of living within the first 100 days, but I also asked by how much? What can Kenyans expect from you? How much do you intend to bring down the cost of living?
I think that the most I can talk of is by what I will do. It's by what I will do.
So you don't have an answer to that?
It's what I will do. I believe as a nation now that even our annual budget should not be 3 trillion. If we did things right, if we preserved our public funds, if we put them to the use they should, our annual budget should be going up to 10, 20 trillions instead of 3 trillion. If we had done things right, we should not be, and we are not unthankful, we are thankful, just rejoicing that we have got 22 kilometers expressway. This nation will be full of expressway, hundreds of miles. So I am really talking of, if I can give an estimate from here, I can't remember what we have said, bringing the cost of living. I tell you what, even if out of my 20, 30 trillion Kenya shillings, which I believe is both out there and wasted, we got 10 trillion. This nation will be flipped upside down. I read something this week in one of the dailies. It was in the Nation newspaper. Let me give credit to an our report. And they said that the current road network, which we understand infrastructure, 11,000 kilometers, that's what we built. We built it with 1.5 trillion. Look at what 1.5 trillion can do. What if you have 10? What if you have 15? What you have 20? Kenyans, I'm asking you to take a journey with me. Visualize, close your eye, and see a nation 59 years, what it should have been. The other nations we talk about, as I look at you, New York, London, Singapore would be looking up to Kenya. Okay. That's what I want to make Kenya to be.
Okay, and we can't end this topic before we talk about employment. It's a huge issue in the country right now, and a number of Kenyans are not employed, particularly those leaving school who are looking for jobs, and even the adult population. Some of them even above 40 years are not employed. And he said statistics also show that about 63% of Kenyans tonight will go to bed without a meal on the table. What is your plan for this group of people if you are elected president to create employment to this country? We've had promises of 1 million jobs a year, 800,000 jobs. What is the AGANO plan for this?
Might I interject and ask also, how will you create more jobs in the formal sector?
Yes.
We have looked at that issue. It's close to our hearts. I feel you, I feel Kenyans, because things are bad out there. Things are real bad. We have said in our manifesto that we will endeavor to create employment at all levels. With the 2010 Constitution, we went devolvement. And one of the things we have said in our manifesto that when we bring our funds back, when we stop the siphoning, the 2 billion, when we arrest those people who have made it impossible for the government or the president to move forward, we will give from the national office 40% to the devolved units. And we have said out of that, that is far above even but that's above the 35 that BBI was promising. That even beyond that, we want to ensure that 50 million at least goes to the lowest unit of development, which is the village council. And there are people who would say, how would that happen? And what benefit will it have? For us, we devolved money. Unfortunately, we also devolved corruption, but we never devolved decision-making. We are interested, we want Kenyans to decide what they want to do from the lowest unit, the mtaa, the village, the nyumba kumi. And why is this important? Because some part of the job creation will come from there. It is there they will decide we need a road to this area, we need to make a cattle dip if there are areas without. Is there they will decide that we need to have this